on my head, you got a Jake.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to this, the second episode of the 6 Million Mile Show. And I am one of your co-hosts, Crackerbox Jimmy.
And I am your other co-host, Trucker Toby. And we are here today with the Executive Director and Regional Vice President of the American Truck Historical Society, Lawrence and Tony.
We had a great conversation with them. They were great guys, and I was very happy that they agreed to come on the show. Very knowledgeable. Really had a good time talking to them.
It was a lot of fun for me. I'm not quite the historian you are, but just listening to Tony talk about the old, Kenworth, W100 and that type of stuff, and talking about the truck he's driving today, just blows my mind that some of these trucks are still out there and you don't see them. I mean, I recently seen a cab over. We were talking about them, and I recently seen one as a Holland Produce. It's an older guy driving it, and it was in really good shape. He took care of it.
Nice. Out here in Northern California, we don't see very many old trucks. There's a couple of, I saw a cab over a couple of days ago pulling hay, local farm truck. But the cab overs, like we had said, they stopped being produced around 2006 for North American use. And California has these laws that say that you can't have a diesel engine on for highway use other than a few low mileage exceptions with an engine older than 2010. So seeing a cab over on the road out here in California is really extremely rare because of the regulations. So it was just fun to remember them and fun to talk about, but I do miss seeing them. They just look good.
I like driving mine, and the way I have to, I know you were talking about where's the hood? We have to jack the whole cab up basically to get to the engine. So many people don't know about that, and what those guys at the ATHS are doing is just, to me, is phenomenal because they're preserving the history of who we are as an industry. So it was a blast for me. It really was.
Yeah, I could tell you all kinds of cab over stories of cab overs in the garage when they jacked the cab up, and driver had one guy had a bowling ball back in his bunk and forgot to take it out of the back of the bunk. They jacked that cab up, and that thing came right through one of the windshields in the front, right through the middle of the windshield. But Lawrence and Tony, as we're going to see here in a minute, we're going to cut to the video. They know their stuff, and I was just really impressed to learn about the mission of the ATHS. So why don't we go and take a look at the video? Are you ready, Toby?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go do it.
What's going on, everybody? This is Trucker Toby. Today we are here with the Executive Director of the American Truck Historical Society, Lawrence, and a good friend of his, Tony Martin. And we're here to discuss the evolution of the truck and how the trucks have changed over the last 100 years or so. Lawrence, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you, as the Executive Director of the ATH, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your role is with them?
Thank you. Good to meet you guys. Bottom line is, I'm the Executive Director of a non-profit organization that consists of about 17,000 people around the world, but mostly the US, that love old trucks. So my job is to make sure that magazines get out on time, that the home office is running smoothly, so all the information that you guys need out on the road is available when it's supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a non-profit service to people that love old trucks.
Where is your home office located, if you don't mind?
Kansas City, Missouri, up near the airport. So it's just off I-29. Anybody that knows Kansas City and goes to the airport knows the old Klein, the red Klein out the back there that was made locally. But not many people know why it's there. So we're trying to get as much publicity for the visitor center, the Hall of Fame, and the library as we possibly can, because it is a cool place to be.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it.
Lawrence, how long have you been there, Lawrence? How long have you been the director?
I've been here 5.5 years. ATHS has been in this building for 20 years and has existed for 52 years.
Wow.
Whilst we are going through a growth of services and benefits to members, I can't take the credit for the whole 50 years. Absolutely.
How about you, Tony? How long have you been involved with the trucking industry?
I have been in the trucking industry in one form, fashion, or the other since I was born. In 1996, I joined ATHS, and then I became a RVP, which is regional vice president for the states of Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi about 2 years ago. So I've been an RVP now for 2 years, which is a position on the board of directors, and then I serve in various committees and what have you. I'm the chairman of the training committee, which does webinars, the programs at the conventions, the training seminars, and things like that.
What made you get involved with the ATHS?
Well, I discovered ATHS, oddly enough, as an 18-year-old college freshman in a computer class, and we had a exercise using the internet, which was something new then. And what else would an 18-year-old male search for when turned loose on the internet? Old trucks. And I found ATHS, and I didn't know how to print anything, so I jotted down in my notebook the address and how much the dues were, and came home and made out a check and mailed it off and became a member. My dad was a tremendous influence on me, and he was in the trucking industry all of his life, and he had 2 different types of stage 4 cancer and got in kind of bad shape towards 2019, and we were going back and forth to chemo treatments a lot. And I thought, it's a shame that all of this knowledge that he has and all these experiences that he has are gone when he's gone. And at some point it dawned on me, they don't have to be gone. I have soaked up as much as a human could possibly soak up. I should do something so I could share with others the experiences that my father has had. Mm-hmm. So I decided at that point, things just moved into place. And one of the RVPs that covered our area, who was a good friend, Dave Himmelwright, approached me one day and he said, I've got a little more territory than I want to cover. Would you be interested in taking over part of my area? And he didn't get the words out of his mouth before I said, absolutely, yes, I certainly would.
All right. So what exactly, tell our audience what exactly I know you're an RVP, but what does an RVP with the ATHS do?
An RVP, I kind of relate it to, you have to take this tongue in cheek, but I kind of relate it to our representative that we send to Congress or in your state house. We represent the members in our area to the home office, to the national organization. And then we sit on the board of directors and we provide a voice to our members in our area of the way they would like to see things run, programs they would like to see implemented, and so forth. And that we're essentially a go-between. Then we go back to our members, our local chapters, what have you, and we provide them the information that things that are going on at home office, banners they can rent, the way they do a truck show, things that are available for them to do in a truck show or to help them as a chapter. And we're just essentially a go-between, represent the members to home office, and then as well we represent the home office to the members.
What he was saying there is that being a non-profit, we have 17,000 members. I have 17,000 owners, and I work for 17,000 bosses. So I can't say that I make no decisions, but general policy decisions are made by the membership. So people like Tony, there's 30, 40 people like Tony on the board, bring to the office, well, why don't we try this at the next convention? So then the few staff, we have 8 staff, try and carry that out and supply the wishes of the membership. We had a fantastic idea come through earlier this year of someone suggested we should have free coloring books and crayons for kids. So the office developed it. At every truck show now, you can see coloring books of
I like it.
trucks from small to large. I can send you a couple if you need. That's not a problem.
That'd be awesome. That actually leads me to my next two questions, if you don't mind. What is the role of ATHS in the trucking industry? Tell our fan base, our viewers, what exactly it is that the ATHS does. I mean, I know it's the American Truck Historical Society, and that kind of speaks for itself. But I mean, can you dig a little bit deeper into it for our listeners?
The slogan is preserving the history of trucks, the trucking industry, and its pioneers. So it's making sure the history of the whole industry, whether it's manufacturers, OEMs, drivers, every aspect of it is remembered. So just as Tony was saying, all the things that his dad learnt, we need to have on record for future generations. We have build records for Kenworths and White trucks here, and Peterbilts and several others. We have memorabilia of all sorts around the building. So it's holding on to the history of the organization, of the industry.
Yeah, and that's really important. That's an important job, because going forward as the industry grows and progresses, if you don't have a solid understanding of how you got to where you are right now, what did the people before me do? If you don't understand that, the industry, in my opinion, isn't going to have a good idea of where it should be going. You know, it's very important to me to understand where, you know, what did these guys have to go through that were driving trucks in the early days, understand the complexities of the job and how that led into like today's regulations and the incredible creature comforts that the drivers get relative to what even when I started driving, which was in '82. So it's that's a good job.
We are the formal repository for trucking industry history for ATA.
Mm-hmm.
And OIDA are participating partners in this organization. So it is bringing it all in together. And as I say, Cummins have just come on as a visionary partner. Mac this week, I sent them a contract. They haven't signed it yet. Come on, Mac. And Freightliner are in. Kenworth are being inducted into the Hall of Fame in October. And on the 25th of October, there'll be one Kenworth from every decade sitting out in the parking lot behind me. For an old guy, this is one of the coolest jobs in the world. So come over and enjoy it and share it with me.
All right. So, okay, Lawrence. So let's say that I go to your website, aths.org, and I decide I want to become a member. What benefits do I get? You know, I'm not asking what the dues are, nothing like that. But what benefits as a member of the ATHS do I enjoy especially as an active driver?
Remember, we don't represent the trucking industry as it is today, but the history of.
Right.
So if you're looking for insurance on the truck you're sitting in, go somewhere else. But if
No.
But if you're looking for insurance for your 82 Kenworth, we can arrange a discount for you on that. The main thing that we say is you come for the trucks and you stay for the people. We have a convention which brings together about 1,000 old trucks. Next year it's in York, Pennsylvania. And then about 8,000 people come and look at the trucks and share the experience. That's one of the key things. The magazine, Wheels of Time, is an industry leader, incredibly popular. We're now selling it through truck stops, through Barnes & Noble. I've just got a list of all the news agents in Australia that are now selling it. So there's old truck lovers all over the world. Enjoy it. As far as the benefits, if you wanted to list it all out, I can truthfully say you can get a discount on your insurance for your dog, but that's not one that we actually sell as a high priority. But Napa Parts give us a discount, give all members a discount. And as I've said to people earlier this week,
Well,
over the weekend,
think,
I used.
I think more what I'm asking is like, as if I'm a truck enthusiast, I
Yep.
can go to your website, aths.org, and I can research the history of the trucks and stuff like that. That's what I mean by benefit. I mean, it's a knowledge base is what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
that's exactly what it is. We have over 500,000 pieces of information sitting in the library here in Kansas City, and a full-time librarian who'll go through it for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. So it is just about anything you want to know about an old truck. We can do if it's anecdotal. If you ask, how many K900s were built in 1972, I would send you to Tony because he'll know off the top of his head.
I was just going to say Tony would know that, wouldn't he?
But equally, if you want to know how many Brockways were built in 1972, I can send you to our friends up in Cortland, New York. If you want to know Freightliners or internationals, we have the people that know that. I've got a GMC specialist up in Maine. So whatever you need to know. Oh, and my Peterbilt, of course, over in California. So anything you need to know about an old truck, I've got the guy that will have the information if we don't have it in the library.
And Tony, as the representative board member, Toby was asking about, what kind of benefits, what kind of responsibility as a member to the society, what kind of responsibility to present information to help preserve this knowledge base. How do you feel about that? What do you think your responsibility as a member is?
I like to tell people, and Lawrence may get all over me for this, but it's the way I feel. If you simply want to get the magazine, it is well worth the price of the dues just to get the magazine. Anything else that you choose to do above that, if you choose to make a donation to the library, if you choose to get information from the library, if you join a local chapter and come up with 10 new friends that you never knew existed until you joined that local chapter that were right there in your own neighborhood that like old trucks as well. All of those things are benefits to being a member that are there for you if you want to. But we have a lot of people that just, they want to get the magazine, and that's fine. If you want to join and get the magazine, that's great. We encourage you to engage and, really participate, but you don't have to. Some people don't want to do that. They
All
just
right, I
wanna
have a question for you.
be a magazine subscriber. Yes, sir.
I have a question for you, Tony. So you've been a member since you were, about 18 years old, you said, and I think you said
Yes,
you're
sir.
46. So that's
Yes, sir.
a pretty long time. And the time you've been involved with the organization and the time you've been a driver in the industry and involved in the trucking industry, what would you say is the most significant change in trucks aside from the technology, because there's good and bad on both sides of that?
Well, that's essentially what I was going to say is the biggest change has been the introduction of computers to trucks. Initially, Detroit came up with their electronic controlled engine, and that was just completely unheard of to make it fire the injectors and change the timing and the fuel rate. And that just turned the industry on its ear, and everybody was struggling to catch up with that. But now the trucks today, they've got automatic braking, they've got cameras that tell the truck different things. Everything on that truck is connected to a computer. And as you say, some is good, some is bad. It depends on what you're expecting to get out of it, what your goal was by using that computer for that particular use. But computers have just made such a difference in trucks. A truck in 1995, when I joined, there were a few electronic engines out, but the average guy that got in a truck, he was going to need to know the shift pattern. He was going to need to know how to stop the truck being loaded or being empty, the differences in that. There were some things he was going to have to know. And now the computer shifts it for you. The computer handles the break-in for you. The computer tells you if you're getting out of your lane, and it's made driving truck much easier than it used to be.
I tell people, now I tell people there was a skill set. I started driving in 2001. Then you know, like you say, you had to know, all right, I'm loaded, fully loaded. I know I need more room to stop if that car in front of me, and you had to have a specific skill set and grow that skill set. Now in a way, and I, there are some people that will disagree with me. They're almost trying to idiot proof the industry in some ways.
It's like the autonomous trucks. I know that's a deep rabbit hole, but that's an example of trying to completely take the driver out of it, let the computer completely do everything. And at this point, I don't think that's exactly possible, but it's something they're trying, and that's what they've done. If you look back in the early 60s, your average highway truck had two sticks. It had a main and auxiliary transmission, and you had a gear shift for each. So there was a lot of pride among drivers of how well you could shift a two-stick transmission. It used to be an old saying, if you met a guy driving a Mack going up the hill and he waved at you, he had three hands, because he had two hands. He had two hands on the gear shifts of that Mack if he was going up a hill. But when Fuller came out with their Road Ranger in the early 60s, that was just completely different. Here you've got 10 or even 15 gears on one stick, and all you have to do is pull a little button up to change from one to the other. And a lot of people did not like those, because much like the computers today, us guys that take pride in, I know how to drive a truck. I'm a truck driver. They felt that was making it much easier. It was making it so anybody could drive a truck. And then Mack, when they came out with the Maxidine system and a 5-speed transmission, that was part of their selling point. If you could drive a 5-speed in your pickup truck, you can drive this Mack. And it's kind of the same idea that they had way back then, except now they're using computers instead of trying to actually revolutionize the actual mechanical parts.
One of the things I love about doing this show with Crackerbox and having you and Lawrence on the show is part of the idea behind it is to preserve the history. And I think that the ATHS is based on what I'm hearing and what you're saying, and you and Lawrence are doing an awesome job of maintaining that history, because I've been a part of this industry for 23 years, Crackerbox for 30. He's still a part of it in his own way. And this show, we want to give something back, and maintaining that history. It's nostalgia for guys like us, but right. It's history, and we don't want to lose that. We don't want to be forgotten. And I don't necessarily mean us as individuals. I mean as drivers, where we come from, how things have changed. It's just amazing to watch it, and I don't want to lose that, man. I want to pass that on to somebody else. Like you with your dad.
Absolutely. I have a 1973 K100 cab over Kenworth that my dad bought new. Only truck he ever bought new. We have it fixed up, and we take it to shows. You would be surprised whenever we have a truck show somewhere. Anybody can come, and we get a lot of just drivers that happen to be in the area, and there's some old trucks over there that might be fun to go look at. It's amazing how many people come by and have never sat in a cab over, and even a few of them that have never seen a cab over. What in the world did you use a truck like that for? Where's the hood? And they don't understand it. And for us that were around 20 years ago, well, I guess it's longer than that now, but some time ago, cab overs were everywhere. And today, unless you see one that some guy has fixed up and got out on the road, they're rare to see a cab over on the road. And by doing truck shows, we're getting guys coming in that are learning something they didn't even know existed.
My first truck was a 98 International cab over. with a doghouse, and I loved that truck. I could turn it on a dime, man. I loved that truck.
Mhm.
I pulled into our driveway, our parking lot yesterday, and there were two old trucks in it, an 84 Kenworth cabover and an 82 Peterbilt conventional, because the guys were staying at the hotel next door and wanted to come in here once we opened. And I also had a couple of VIPs from Washington, DC in the building. I took them out and got them to drive around the parking lot in the cab over. And we have converts in DC now. It's
Awesome. That's amazing. That's awesome.
yeah. One of the things that I just wanted to highlight here, and this is a good one for having Tony on, is it's not just for old truck drivers. Tony's wife and my wife sit on committees, helping direct more the marketing side of things rather than convention, that sort of thing. But anybody that hasn't, and who doesn't have an attraction to an old truck, can be a part of this and actually get involved and be support you guys that are out there doing the work. It's just a great bunch of people.
You know, you're talking about the old cabovers there. I think it was 2006 or right about there, the last American use cabover rolled off the Freightliner line, and there hasn't been one built since for the American market. And I frankly, I trucked through New England a lot. You know, I was getting into Boston and all the old tight little New England towns. And when the company I was driving for switched to all conventionals, that job got a lot harder. I actually miss my cab over for those kinds of tight situations. I don't necessarily miss the ride. I remembered an old cab over Transtar 2 International that I drove across country and had to duck all the time because I would hit my head on the ceiling of the cab because the road was so rough and just the wheelbase of the truck, it would just hop. And you know, it was terrible at the moment, but boy, is it a fun story to remember. You know, it's great now because the swelling's finally gone down.
And you know, thankfully you're wearing the hat just in case it hadn't after all these years.
But
I
was
know this
thinking,
feeling, man. I love driving a cab over, but it'll give you a headache.
It can. I was taking a look at the ATHS website, and I'm really impressed with that library. That's quite an archive. I mean, what you've got, you were talking earlier about the, you know, if I wanted to know how many trucks were made in this year and this type, but what else do you have in that library?
We have one of our sponsors, Vanderhaeg's Industries, is now paying for us to digitize all the 8 and 16 millimeter movies. So it's training films from old trucking companies from like 60s, 70s, that sort of thing. Slide decks, we've got hundreds of those that are going to be transposed into digitized. But there are books, there are magazines, just about anything you can possibly. We have, and I must admit I don't know how many, but a lot of microfiche from Kenworth and White. But yeah, so there is not many things. Oh, I don't know if you've heard of a Klein, but Kleins were made in Missouri and they went out of business back in the 70s. We have the architectural blueprints for every single truck that was ever built. And you could spend days just going through the filing cabinets here. It's just fascinating stuff.
One of the things that we have is that I find interesting and it's pretty popular for people to look at is we have industry publications, trucking industry publications, all the way back to the early 1900s.
Wow.
All the way up, like through the late 60s and the 70s. Overdrive magazine, that was really popular. You saw them everywhere. Well, ATHS has got a complete collection of them. If you want to see what was in the January 1963 issue, go find the box that it's in there on the shelf for 1963, slide it out, take a look at it. We've also got the sales data books service manuals, parts books
Hmm.
for just about any truck that's ever been made. If you want to know how much a 1935 GMC cost and what different engines you could have in it, you go find the 1935 GMC dealer book, pull it out, and it'll give you all that information and tell you how much it costs.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's
That's a labor of
just
love, man.
treasure
labor
trove
of
of
love.
information there.
I was down in Santa Rosa, California, about a month or so ago, and went into an antique store and discovered that somebody had gone through old magazines and pulled out full page advertisements and had a whole section of old truck advertisements. And I dug this one out. It is an auto car ad
Yeah.
from 1918. Shows all the different body configurations. You could get, you could handle 1.5 to 2 tons on that frame. The chassis itself cost $2,050 back in 1918, and did a little checking. That's like $46,000 now that you could get the chassis and have all kinds of different things put on the back. But I have a thing for old auto cars. I love old auto cars. The old Constructor, it's one of my favorite trucks. But just like taking a look at these trucks, there's no windshield, there's no doors, there's nothing to protect the driver from any of the elements. You know,
They didn't go fast enough to need that.
Yeah, you didn't need speed restrictors on those.
That's right.
Have
Barely needed brakes.
have either of you gotten a chance to drive in anything that old, or to ride in anything that old?
I
Or
got
close to it?
my foot was run over by an A model just last year.
That counts. Oh, do you do anything with the any kind of association with the truck museum up there in Wolcott, Iowa?
Very good friends, yes. Bill Moon, who started the operation up there, was president of this organization. His wife at one stage Caroline was on the board of directors. So still a good relationship. They have been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
We try, and what we're trying to be is the hub of history rather than the be all and end all.
Mm-hmm.
The museum at Iowa AT is better and bigger than we could ever build. So we work with them, just as we work with the Northwest Pacific Museum, Keystone Museum, etc. When we're working with Cummins and Kenworth, we don't necessarily need all of their records here. We just need access to their records electronically, and they can do it to us as well. So we're trying to make it a hub of historical trucking information, even though this is basically a really good starting point anyway.
So the ATHS is a resource for historians. If
Yes.
I wanted to come and learn about something very specific, you are the people to go see.
Yep. And equally, we have one of the tenants here in this building. It's our building, but one of the tenants is Spamfer, the fire engine collectors people. Just down the road, and again, good friends of the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. They've promised me that they'll let me drive a tank, but that hasn't come to reality yet. But equally, another one that we work with is the construction equipment. So the guys that collect old bulldozers and things like that.
Wow.
And we share information. So we received, for instance, 7 pallets of information from a member that died probably 2 years ago now. And about a third of it we shared with other organizations. So
7 pallets?
Pardon?
Yes.
7
Oh, yeah.
pallets? That's a lot
7
of
pallets.
information, man.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
That's
a
insane.
lifetime collection of a hardcore truck enthusiast. He was in the industry, and I personally went through some of that stuff with the library committee, trying to separate it and organize it, and what have you. And the things he had collected were just amazing.
Lawrence, before I forget, I have to say this. I am so glad I ran into you at Matt's earlier this year.
I can't. You're the only person who would ever say that.
No, I'm sure you've had it said by other people, just, not in front of witnesses like I am.
And obviously a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to be doing this. This is what ATHS is all about, getting the word out. And I don't want to harp on this, but it's a non-profit. All we are doing is sharing the experience of old trucks, old trucking, and old guys that love old trucks.
It's amazing.
Tony, do you have anything else that you want to add to this? Before we actually started the show, we talked a little bit about what you're actually in. If I'm sure you wouldn't mind telling everybody about the truck that you're driving right now.
My daily driver is a 1978 Peterbilt 359, extended hood, 36-inch sleeper. It's got originally had a Cummins in it. When the Cummins had been rebuilt so many times that it wouldn't hold a head gasket anymore, we put a 60 series Detroit in it, and it's got a 14-liter 60 series, and I've put about $1,500,000 on that engine. The truck itself's got about $4.5 million.
Wow.
Do you do your own work on the truck, Tony?
My dad was kind of a stickler about wanting his work done right and done a certain way, and that passed on to me. Be it good or bad, this truck has never been to a shop. This trailer has never been to a shop. Anything that gets done, I do it.
That's kind of why I asked that question, because a lot of the newer guys out here don't realize some of these old veteran drivers that drive trucks, like they do the work themselves. They always have. That's the way they were taught. That's the way they were shown. And that's what they were taught, I guess is the best way to put it. You do your own work, because if you do it, it's being done right.
Well, it's being done right. And particularly in the old days, you didn't have a cell phone. If you broke down on the side of the road, you had to wait on somebody that was coming by that was going your same direction or the other direction and tell them, hey, could you send me some help? Or could you call my company and tell them that I'm broke down here so they can send somebody? And you might sit there a half a day. And my dad hauled livestock, and you can't do that very well with livestock. They've got to keep moving. So that's one reason he particularly did well in that line of work, is he knew what to do to his truck, and he always helped the other people that may not know that were trucking along with him. And when they had an issue, he knew what to do to get the truck back going. And I could spend hours telling you things that you would never believe that they did on the side of the road. He and another driver changed the clutch in a 1972 K100 that went out just after they left the Arkansas scale on I-40, headed west with cattle. Clutch went out, started slipping, and they couldn't get any more adjustment out of it to make it go any further. So they pulled the transmission out right there on the side of the road, on the side of I-40. Some guy happened to come by saying, I think they took a clutch like that out of my log truck last week. I'll go look and come back. 30 minutes later, the guy drives up with a used clutch. They put it in, bolt it back up, and continue on to Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Right
it's
there
funny.
on the side of I-40.
I remember years ago, you could walk into a shop and go clunk, 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 clank, 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 and you could point to the area the noise was coming from, and the mechanic could look at you and go, I know exactly what's wrong with your truck.
Yeah.
And they could fix it. Now they've got to run all these computer diagnostics and stuff, and it's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that's amazing.
And unfortunately, a lot of times they overlook the obvious, go into the computer. They'll go to the computer to try to figure something out that if you just stop and think for a minute, the computer didn't cause that. That's an actual mechanical problem that you could easily fix, but they have their flow chart that they follow, and that's the way they go.
Hey, Tony, real quick, can I ask, do you have the opening for the sleeper visible where you can maybe move your camera and show it where you crawl through it?
I do.
I want other drivers.
I've opened it up a little. but
Look at that.
it reaches down to the bottom of the bed, and it's right here between the seats. It's a little wider than the width of the seats, and it reaches from the bottom of the bed to about head high.
See, now we have all this open space, you know, that they oh, you got a 72-inch sleeper or whatever it is. I remember, like, if you watch the Smokey and the Bandit movie, there was a hole you had to crawl through to get to the sleeper, man. See, that a lot of that stuff is lost now, man. I love the fact that you guys are doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Well, it's funny you bring that up about the Smokey and the Bandit truck. I'll throw this in for just a second. Kenworth actually, and that truck, the Smokey and the Bandit truck, had a roll-up back window. You roll the window up just like your side window between the cab and the sleeper. If it was a hot day and you didn't want to have to cool the sleeper, you roll the window up. If your co-driver said the noise was too much, if you had the radio too loud, you roll the window up. So you could actually completely shut it off.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
I had no idea. But I must say that I am just highly impressed by the mission and the scope of what you're doing at the ATHS. This is really impressive. I'm happy to talk to the both of you, Lawrence and Tony, to learn about this and really get to understand what you're doing. I've been looking at the website while we're chatting. I can't wait to get out there and check it out myself. I'm going to dive into that archive. I tell you what.
Yeah, you're a big historian too, because you've been driving so long there, the Cracker Box. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's part of everybody's story. You know, what we're doing. How'd we get here? Why are we sitting around talking about old trucks? Because there's a value in that knowledge that really needs to get passed on. There's an ethos behind all these old stories that, in my opinion, is disappearing out on the highway.
It is.
Yeah,
and it's our job to keep it alive. It's the ATHS's job to keep it alive, and it's our job to help them keep it alive, and for us to keep it alive as well. I mean, this is it, man. We're the last of the old guard.
Lawrence, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to this before we wrap up here?
No, not specifically. Just to re-emphasize that the facility here, the home office in Kansas City, is just an awesome place to visit.
Tony, are you all set?
The one thing that I wanted to throw out there about becoming a member, as an RVP, you know, I try to recruit members, and you know, whenever we go to a show or whatever, and people come by that are interested, we try to recruit members. And one thing that I get from a lot of people, oh, well, I can go look at old truck pictures online and it doesn't cost me anything. Well, you're missing the point. By joining ATHS, you're supporting ATHS. If you're looking at pictures online, if the internet went down, you're out of touch. But you're actually developing a relationship with other members, and it's support of ATHS is what's keeping the history of trucks around for future generations.
Very true.
If nobody joined, there'd be 2 or 3 guys sitting around saying, "Hey, look at all this stuff we got. What are we going to do with it?" You need to join.
Are there chapters in every state?
In most states. One of the things that I was going to mention earlier is, as well as chapters, there are divisions. Divisions are industry-based or trade-based. There is an auto car division. So a bunch of auto car enthusiasts have gotten together and created a chapter of their own.
Oh, wow. There you go, Cracker Box.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll check that out. Well, great. Toby, do you have any last words before we wrap this thing up?
I am so glad that we were able to reach out to you gentlemen and do this show, this episode. I did not expect it to be as fun as it has been. And I am absolutely blown away by all that you guys do. Tony, you and I and Lawrence need to stay in touch, and I'm sure Cracker Box will share that same sentiment about how we can maybe help the industry, help each other. You know, whatever, just yes,
Absolutely.
definitely. And,
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
and I'm gonna look and see if there's a local chapter in Lansing, Michigan, by the way, because my wife had never been to a truck show and was finally at one at Matt's this year, and she loves it. And so I think that would be fun for her. And I have little girls too, so and they love seeing Daddy's big truck.
I'm geographically challenged, but I know Michigan's a strong state for us. I don't know exactly where Lansing is, but absolutely, it's a
I couldn't resist it. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist it.
Everybody from Michigan. I grew up in Michigan.
I'm
Everybody
not
there.
from
Yeah.
Michigan. I live there. I'm not from there, but I couldn't resist it. That one was for the
Yeah.
wife
Yeah.
and for you, Cracker Box, because you're from Michigan.
Yeah, but I grew up over here. Well, this has been fantastic. Lawrence, Tony, thank you very much for taking time out of your really busy day to talk about this and let everybody out there know about the ATHS. And I'm looking forward to becoming a member myself. This is that magazine. I saw that on the aths.org website. Pretty amazing publication. Yeah, I'm
It is.
looking forward to getting that. Again, thank you very much. And thank you
Thank
to everybody out there that's watching this. Get a hold of the ATHS. Check out their website. You will not be disappointed. So this is Cracker Box Jimmy for the 6 Million Mile Show. And Toby?
This is Trucker Toby, and I am 1010 on the side. For Cracker Box Jimmy and myself, thank you so much to Lawrence and Tony from the ATHS for taking the time to do this episode of the 6 Million Mile Show. We really appreciate it. It was a great episode. I had a blast. Yeah,
absolutely. That was an awful lot of fun. I really liked talking to Lawrence and Tony. They knew what they were talking about, and we all had a good time with this one.
We did. And hey, everybody, do not forget to check out their website, aths.org. Check out the library. Check out their archive. You will not regret taking the time to take a look at it. I promise.
Yeah, I've checked it out there. It's a great website. And thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of the 6 Million Mile Show. I'm one of your co-hosts, Cracker Box Jimmy.
And I am your other co-host, Trucker Toby. And I am, as always, 1010 on the side.